doing, Bobby?
I'm all right.
It's really great to see you.
Likewise.
Thank you for doing this. You have been keeping up with everything you've been doing the last, 5-6 years. When did you move to New York City?
I moved in 2013.
So about 8 years you've been
8
here.
years, yeah.
You just were going back and forth to Chicago for things, family,
Yeah.
music, work.
Do you mean in that time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also had like a little stint there where pre-tour, 6 months off, not going to renew my apartment out here. Happened to get called to produce for the Empire TV show, which shoots in Chicago. So then it was a nice situation of being back at your parents' house, but for a good job too. So
Yeah. That's cool.
yeah,
That's cool. I want to get to all this I've been doing right now, but I want to kind of start more at the beginning.
Yeah, 100%.
Of your life. You're from the area I'm from. Like which city in particular?
Palos Hills.
Palos Hills, and you went to Stagg High School.
I did.
And knew a bunch of people I know from that world. And when did you first start playing music, specifically bass? When did that start happening for you?
Bass was not the first.
Bass wasn't the first, okay.
Born in a music family. Grandfather starts a gospel choir, which is called the Wooten Choral Ensemble, still around today.
Really?
Yep.
What year did he start that?
1949.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
And still
I hope
around?
that I'm like 100% on that date, yes. 49.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so still around. So, they just celebrated another anniversary digitally. My dad, he now music directs it, and he did a great digital presentation. Mm-hmm. But so for me, I was born and grandfather still directing. At that time, I lived in Jersey, but we moved back to Chicago when I was 6 years old, I think.
Okay.
Or to Palos Hills, 6 years old, so that my dad could take over the choir as director, and so for me it was like once I became a certain age. I mean, I was just always like just play with at first like keyboard very low volume until I got better, but it was kind of just jamming at church every Sunday, and I would switch off instruments. It wasn't until I was with some friends in my basement that we started to love Blink-182. And one of them could play guitar, the other could play drums. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'll play the bass. And so that is what kind of started me picking up the bass guitar after that. And I think the difference, like piano, I would learn from my dad. My grandfather actually gave me lessons. Then I had a different teacher later through high school. But bass guitar, no one taught me at all. And I think maybe that was part of the reason why I was like super, like I just went like, dove the deepest.
You just went way into it.
Yeah. I mean, it was like...
How old were you again when you first started playing bass?
4th grade or 5th grade, something like that.
10, 11?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. Okay. Whatever that age is.
Yeah.
Yeah, around then. And it was like a quick Blink-182 into like some Flea bass playing and Red Hot Chili Peppers into all things Motown. And then my dad he's a fantastic keyboardist, producer, and he went on tour with Marcus Miller, and so I was bass legend, and so that then was like, I think Marcus was like hero too, so just wanting to sound like that, and that was like far like virtuoso level too. So it was all those things, and I loved it all. So I just enjoyed. That was just me having fun all the time. But bass, like there was no lessons at all until I got to college. It was just me playing with myself, really.
Wow. So did you take any like jazz ensemble or anything in high school? Did you do any music in high school?
Yeah, I did jazz band and all that. I did piano one of the years, my senior year, I think, or junior year.
Were you playing bass the other years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of that practice and working with that. You didn't take lessons outside of that, though?
Not until college.
Not until college.
Yeah, so and that's when I learned the upright bass.
Oh, so you didn't start upright until college?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know if you started earlier or not. Why'd you go to upright bass? Like, what made you want to do that?
I think when I was going to college, it was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a musician. So my dad producer, I was always producing, even in high school and just like making things. And I think I always knew I wanted to be producer, but I think at the time I just looked at it as like, oh, but like musician, so you pick your instrument and boom. And so it was bass and upright. I'd taken a few lessons on. It's not that I never like loved it. I just didn't. There wasn't. I don't know. There wasn't like a need for me to play it, I guess, at that time. Mm-hmm. But it was I was looking forward to it. I mean, I specifically went to study with Jeremy Allen at Indiana University because he was electric bass player first, then learned upright later in life too. So like his first lesson, remember the first thing he said, he's like, what you know how to play is a guitar. What you're about to learn is a cello. And to just like separate those two things. And then, freshman year, it was just like,
It's a world of difference.
oh, 100%. I mean, like everything's different, but like, but not like having groove and things like that. And I just love, I mean, another thing, I didn't touch on this earlier, but I think as a bass player, for me, I don't need to be playing the melody or whatever. I like supporting, and I like playing in between rhythm with a drummer and wherever the lead person is and picking my spots within that. I enjoyed being like that relationship in a musical setting, or that role, but having those various relationships when I'm playing with instrumentalists or singers or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so you went to Indiana University?
Yeah.
And then in Bloomington, okay. That's a really good music school. I know a lot of people that went there. And you graduated there in what, 2011?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I don't know why I knew that. Well, you graduated STAG in 2007, so it's probably where, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And after that, so you've been playing piano on and off your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
When did you first start that piano?
I mean, piano is
Just
like...
born with it?
Oh, yeah.
And
Born.
musical family.
Yeah.
Anybody else musical in your family besides your dad and your grandfather?
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, everyone has, like, that within them. Even if they're bossing in the financial world or a doctor, veterinarian. That's shouts to my brother and sister. But they were both music all through high school. I think still play. My sister still sings in the choir. She's still in Chicago. And aunts, uncles. That was just, like, that side of my family was just that.
Everybody.
Yeah, my grandfather was a very big, like, pillar in Chicago gospel music.
Yeah.
And so that was just like, you know,
that's really cool.
Influential for like everyone.
Are there vinyl recordings of anything you did? I would love to hear them.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Send me ways I can buy them. I'd love to.
Okay, yeah,
have
will
those.
do.
Thank you. So you get out of college 10 years ago, and then what? What do you start doing? You have a degree in music. You learn upright bass. Anything else did you learn in college, like music wise, like instrument wise?
I mean, I really, like it was just music growth. It was like being around like-minded people and just all my friends. I learned this the most from my friends. The music that they were listening to, us checking out. I had two groups that I really loved, still do. One of them, we just came out with like an album. We hadn't been together for like, I guess 10 years, as you said. And we just got together and did another album together called Snarge.
Nice.
And had another project. And so it was like, for me, it was like all the things that go along with being a musician. Then you're even doing like the management side and the business side. And I got a business degree too, but I think I have just like a natural inkling to do that kind of work too. But so, kind of like learned everything. It was like a little mini course towards how life would later be career-wise. Yeah.
Yeah. So what started happening after college for you musically?
First, moved back to my parents' basement, which I would say in my bedroom, but I had like a music studio room. And so those 2 years, I look at them now as like grad school for me. The same way undergrad, bass performance, right? That's my degree. Mm-hmm. The next, like those 2 years when I was home, it was like I did over 400 songs like each year. I was very like, it was just like about the art of like studio and working in DAWs and all that. And so, I mean, I was just like, for me, my goal was to go to New York or LA, and I knew that was for sure. And so I was kind of like very much a no days off when you're at your parents' crib. It's so comfortable and it's great. And I gained a lot of weight because they fed me a lot. But like, I remember days I would like just sleep on the couch because I'd be like, you didn't work well, or like good enough today or whatever. And so it was like, you got to get right back to it. Don't get comfortable. This is not your loft space in Brooklyn. Sort of mentality. But like I look at that 2 years, it was like grad school in like production. And it was all I did. And what ended up happening towards the end of me being there, because I started to work with some artists and whatever, and then it kind of led to I got this gig, I guess, where I was just doing what is it called? It was like music for a sports agency, basically.
Huh.
And there was all these minor league baseball players and boxers, and they would send me like, we like this song, this song, this song. And sometimes they'd be like various genres or whatever, but it was like I was making theme songs for each. So like a minor league baseball player would walk out to go bat, and they were signed to this agency, and they would have like a custom song, a beat or whatever that I had made for them. And same with these boxers. And so like, but it paid well. And so it was consistent enough that it was like, save up, come to New York. And that was kind of also, also great. Like my cousin, he had gotten a spot, and he was like, yeah, it's like, take this room, blah, blah, blah. So it was like, boom. So enough to like situate me to get my start out here. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's in 2013 you come out here.
2013. The sports agency, that gig runs dry like a few months into me being here, I think. And then it was in the beginning, first year, it was like I would do these random DJ gigs at these like, it was like this musician, he had to just set up between like 13 bars, and like basically I think he would get like a bunch of musicians to just DJ at these spots. And so I would rotate between the bars. And I think like my main thing ended up being like every Wednesday night and every Saturday night I was doing that. Mm-hmm. Then I get into some teaching. Yeah. I mean,
where were you teaching and where?
So then I towards the end of the year, also during that year, it was like I got a Chicago native, Matt Rivera, who goes by Mood by Mateo now, but he signed a record deal and was like, yo, he was living in LA at this time. He was like, send me some music. So I sent him some beats, and he was like, this is exactly what I wanted. So he ends up like, his label's in New York. He moves to New York, and so like I was working on his project that also throughout kind of that entire time, in addition to like pitching and stuff. But I start to teach. He taught at this school called Fusion Academy, and so they were opening up a new campus in Lincoln Center, and they needed a music teacher. So I was like, yeah, and so I was doing that like twice a week towards that end of that first year, and then that would be also the time I did my first Broadway show.
And how did you get into the Broadway shows?
So Joe Joubert, so my dad, when he was a musician in New York, and he had done some Broadway work, and then Joe Joubert, this is like an incredible musician as well, music director. He was music directing the Motown musical.
Oh wow!
So he just invites me there to just hang in the pit and watch a show. And he was like, I want you to meet the bass player. So now Luiko Hopper, who's like legend, bass player, period, but then also has like did Lion King. He's just like,
oh, wow.
Yeah, like legend within Broadway too. And so we're just kicking it, we're just talking, and then like dabbling, like just messaging back and forth and whatever. And like maybe like 2 months after I met him, he was like, hey, I could actually use another sub here. Would you be interested? And that was like, it was just that for me. I mean, then there's people that hustle for Broadway gigs and for good reasons and stuff. And so, but I was just like I didn't know I was going to go through that door at all. And so when I did my first show, it was like they give you never rehearse with the company or anything. So when it's like my first show was a Friday night on Broadway, it's just like, boom, I'm meeting every musician I'm playing with. I'm meeting the director. It's just all that, and it's like, just do it. And
they just throw you into it.
They just throw you in, but like they give you materials. I don't know how they did this back in the day. I think about that because what I had was the sheet music, then a conductor cam, which was the feed of like literally the conductor through the whole show, and then an audio recording too of like the bass probably louder in the mix, and so I just like shed practicing those and my experience of like playing the musicals at high school. I remember they would call it Hell Week, which would be like the week before the Friday show, and we would be in school like after when school ended, we would rehearse until like 10 p.m. every single night. And so
wow.
I just did that, like leading. that week before the first show, it was like I would just run the show twice by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Any notes? What did I make a mistake? Boom. It was like I went in there and I had every intention of like not making any mistake. And so that kind of like experience helped. I remember he called me. Luico did like a few days before. He was like, "Hey man, do you want to come in and watch again? Because this is like a really big deal." And me not hustling the Broadway world, now that I've done my own show and stuff, like the subs can come in anytime they want to just watch it live. But I didn't like do that. So for him, he's just like, I hope he's like really practicing and stuff and taking it seriously. And so I was like, yeah, I'll definitely come in again. And, you know, just did that like a few days before. But yeah, I mean, I was so nervous. It's the most nervous I've ever been for a gig. Maybe sometimes when I'm playing with some people that are like very high level, then I could have that sort of anxiety. But this was just like, didn't know anyone, you know, you got to play a certain way. And it took me until like the second act, I remember, where it was like, I did like a little like fill or something, like non like whatever that the original bass player played. And I remember the drum being like, "Yeah, Bobby." And then I was like, all right, I was like, breathe, like you're here. Okay, you're doing it. You're like fine. And yeah, I mean, so then that went well, and then, you know, then Broadway things started to happen fairly quickly, I guess.
How many Broadway shows did you end up doing?
Well, I ended up so after I was there and like, all right, I'm doing this show, and they've called me back, and it was like a designated sub thing. And so I went up to Luico and I was like, hey, like, I would love to sub on some other shows if you know some other bass players that you could introduce me to. And again, he's like Broadway guru. So he puts me in touch with Tom Barney at Lion King. He puts me in touch with a few others, Conrad Adderley at Wicked. And I can't remember what other show, but the other show said no to me. But like those two, it was like back-to-back days. So I hit them up. I was like, yeah, Luico, blah, blah, blah. And I think I go to like Wicked on a Saturday and Lion King on a Sunday, and not expecting anything really, but they were like, all right, here's the music, learn it. And like back-to-back days. So then after that, I'm like learning both of those shows at the same time.
Oh my God, that must have been really hard.
It was just like, all right, yeah, I'm doing this. I wanted to do it. It was cool. It was cool. It was cool for sure. And appreciative of the opportunity. Because then after that, it was like, I also played Color Purple, and at that time, now like I know like Broadway musicians, I guess, like a good amount. Like then associate director of Motown was the music director of Color Purple, and we would go on to do like a bunch of work outside of Broadway together too. And so then I'm like, it's like a more comfortable. It's like, oh yeah, maybe like year like one and a half of playing with like a bunch of Broadway musicians and stuff. And so Color Purple, but then just to say, then it's like I meet a coordinator who kind of really comes through the guitarist of Motown. He kind of really took me under his wing too. And this dude, he played with Mamas and the Papas, all this stuff. And he was like, first 2 show day I did, he was like, what you doing in between? I was like, I was just gonna get food. He's like, all right, you're coming with me. And then after that, it was like every time I was there for a 2 show day, it was like me and him hanging out.
Oh, it's cool.
And so he introduced me to this coordinator that has really like put me in a bunch of great things, which would lead to like me having my own show at Moulin Rouge. But then, yeah, like he also with when David Byrne wrote a musical, which is how I met David. So that was Michael Aarons. And so at any rate, so like just the Broadway thing, the scene, I guess, the circle started to get like smaller and smaller, and then it was just like I was just meeting the right people, because it did happen like fairly quickly, I guess, for me to get like a chair and stuff.
That's awesome. I mean, that just goes to show like your preparation, met opportunity, go-getter mentality, skill, it all comes together.
Yeah, see what you want. And like, yeah. I mean, when I was preparing for those shows, I'm like, I just wanted to sound like whoever the chair was, you know?
Yeah.
It was like, no like ego or anything like that. It was like, I'm just going to play this exactly as Tom Barney plays over here and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm. So you're like in your mid-20s when that stuff's happening.
Yeah, I guess 25 when I did Motown.
Wow.
Yeah. And that all happened, between like 25 to 27.
Wow. So you did a ton of Broadway shows in that time.
I did like 3. I was at those a lot. Yeah. I mean, I just say that because I mean, now I know there's like some people that they're like playing around like 13 different shows and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it's wild. And it's great. I haven't done it like that.
Yeah, well, you did it more than most. And that's so you're doing that, and you said David Byrne wrote one.
Yeah.
And that's how you met him. That's how you
yeah.
got
So
up
he
with
does
him.
a show called Joan of Arc, and it was at the Public Theater, and this must have been when I was 27.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that was great. It was like I remember the first day he was like, "Oh, let me just tell you some influences and inspirations for some of this," and he like of like naming just like art that he had looked at as inspiring. It was like also like to give you a music idea. He mentioned like FK Twigs, I think, and Radiohead, and so it was like it was cool. And I was there, electric bass, and I would always try to like whenever I would see him, like really like get a good conversation going. But it was hard. It was hard.
I'm sure.
It was very like they were like always. Then it was like brief, and then it was like the show was like running. Like in the beginning, he was there, and then when it was up, he would like poke his head. He would come by every now and then. Same with like the rest of like the director and stuff. And he one time pulls me aside after it's like running. He's like, "Hey, I hear what you're adding. I like what's going on." And I was like, "All right, bet. That's cool. Thanks, man." And
well, what made him have you be in his show to begin with?
I think partly that. I mean, I think that he loved my playing. That he would kind of like say, like, for instance, that remark I just made. Then at the very last show, he pulled me aside and he was like, I got something coming up. I'm gonna call you. And I was like, bet. Like, damn. Like, I knew he was working on an album because he had told me that. So I didn't know if maybe he was gonna be in the studio. It ends up being for his American Utopia tour, and he had like I had to still audition as a singer because I sing a lot in that, and so he hadn't heard me sing, so I had to do that. But I mean, I've never asked him like, why'd you choose me? But I mean, he definitely like we worked together, and he liked me from that. So, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So that just started a whole other world for you.
Whole other world. I mean, because then it was like tour, and like now super close friends. So
yeah.
Then when it was actually living with each other and stuff.
You ended up living with them?
I mean, like when you're on the tour bus. So,
oh yeah. Right. Well, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Were you originally like a Talking Heads fan, or you knew them? Were you like really into them before?
Yeah, now like a Die Hard.
Right.
But I mean, my experience. So like one of my best friends that I don't meet until like college.
Mm-hmm.
He puts on Stop Making Sense for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I just remember like it was Once in a Lifetime, and so David's move where he's like that, and I remember the guitarist coming up to him and just like doing like David's doing this dance and the guitarist is doing like this head nod that I would never naturally do, but I remember making a comment. I'm like, damn, I mean, but if I was performing with him, I guess that's how I'm dancing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is crazy now to be I was always a comfortable mover on stage, I think, but like my moves, and then now like when I'm with him, it's like a whole other energy and stuff, and it's very like infectious too. So yeah, that wasn't until college. Like I had heard songs and stuff, but like watch Stop Making Sense, and then I started like checking out records. But even that, it was like David Byrne. He was this figure, and I knew that. I mean, even when I got asked to do the show, I was like, okay, I know who he is, but it wasn't. No, the deep dive probably didn't happen until like I started to work with him before the Joan of Arc musical. So I'm like 26 or whatever when I really started to like check everything out.
That must have been a very interesting, like surreal experience to just have always heard of somebody because you're a musician, you're a music lover, but then to work with them through, Broadway theater, and then all of a sudden you're touring with them around the world.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, especially in that show too. It's like David, I feel very lucky. There's like rare artists that really think about not just the music, but the design, the way it's like released, the packaging, like every element, the stage design, everything. Mm-hmm. So he's one of those. So like I got to first off, luckily was a part of the one where it was like the iterations. I don't know if you've seen American Utopia or not, but okay. So, for just 12 wireless musicians, and that was like the tour before when he was with St. Vincent, horns, they could be wireless. And
Love This Giant, right?
Yeah, Love This Giant, yep. And so when they did the live show, the horns could be mobile, obviously, and they had dancers that were also mobile. And so for them, it was like, brings in choreographer Annie B, who we also work with on this. And so they can move around. And so then this one was kind of like, with American Utopia, it was like, can I get everyone wireless? And so then it's like, now it's like the 6 drummers. Because when he told me that over the phone, he was like, oh, it's going to be 6 drummers. I was like, not that I was ever going to say no, but I was a little worried for sure. As a bass player, it's like...
That's hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's already like the drummer, your relationship's got to be great, which not that I have like many bad relationships with drummers, but it can, it's like, that's just that tussle. But I was like 6, whoa. But they're all like incredible musicians. So, I feel lucky that it's like the one that it's like his concept that have kind of been like building up over years came into fruition, and then that's the one where I started with him on.
Mm-hmm. And you toured all over the world with him?
10 months, like 40 something countries.
Wow.
Yeah. And
have you gone to other countries before this? Have you left America before this?
Yeah, I've traveled, but like, I mean,
not like this.
No. No, like that upped whatever my country count was. There was many.
I mean, 47 is more than most people ever.
Yeah.
So all over Europe, I'm assuming.
Yeah, all over
America.
Europe. South America.
What's the most obscure place you went to?
Obscure in what way?
Just someplace you like never thought you'd ever go to. You're just like, why would I ever go there? How would I ever go there?
How would I ever go there? I don't know. That's such a... I mean, I guess there's like smaller areas that I went to. Brazil, I don't even know if they're like smaller, but like Belo Horizonte, was that like somewhere I ever had like on my thing? I would not be opposed.
Yeah.
Right? But like we did a great bike ride there. These people took us out. It was awesome. But no, on my like list of things like that, I would have to just name like smaller things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
did you go to Asia?
Yeah, only to Hong Kong though.
Still.
I mean, yeah, fantastic. Fantastic, of course.
Wow.
And it was. I wish we had stayed there a little longer. Mm-hmm. It was that we did this great festival, and then we went to New Zealand after that.
Wow, that's cool. That's a lot of traveling.
Yeah, I mean,
you were gone for 10 months. Huh?
10 months. We had 1 week off, and that was like it. Fine for me. I was like am the youngest in the band, and like no kids, and I think it was more for some of the married ones, and just.
That's hard.
Oh yeah,
That's
and hard,
really hard,
and hard for the partner that was at home.
Oh my god, yeah.
They were actually having a great time.
Yeah.
But I mean, sure, missing the kids definitely. But yeah. So for me, it was like I didn't even need the weeks off really.
Yeah, you're just like yes to everything.
Yeah.
I'm 28.
Let's do it.
I'm no kids.
You want to do it again right now? Yeah. I'm ready for it.
Let's keep doing it.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So I'm sure that led to a bunch of other doors opening and opportunities just by that experience, the skill, word of mouth, connections, getting to know him better, getting to meet new people,
Yeah, I mean, there's a definite like certainly I could tell you like, yes, then I was changed like this, and they'd be more finite, like now I ride bikes, and that is real. It's very real.
It's how you got here.
Yeah, it's how I got here. Yeah. And I mean, from that bike went to all those countries that I just named.
Really?
Oh yeah.
That's
it was
awesome.
Like first day of tour, rehearsal, and which was an insane process too, by the way, just the rehearsals. But so tour manager comes up, all right guys, logistics. And then it's like whatever, the day-to-day manager, he's like, logistics. And then David Byrne's just like, okay guys, bicycles. I'm gonna get a new bike, and they fold up and blah blah, and I think if we get a bunch, they'll give us like a really good deal. So who wants bicycles? And it was like at that time it was like half the band goes up, but whatever. But like literally the first day, first city we go to, I can't remember where we were, but he's like, he sends an email to us, the band. He's like, all right, so I'm gonna bike through this like path. I'm gonna get this museum, then I'm gonna go eat here, and then I'm gonna go to sound check. Who wants to join me? And it was just like, yeah, everyone that had a bike, obviously. And so by the end, by like a month in, then everyone was like, yo, I need a bike too. Mm-hmm. But it was a very like, that he's he's nonstop exploration, wants to know how things work, and like all that took away from him. Devours news. I don't do it to his degree now, but there is a much more. He did this project while we were on tour called Reasons to Be Cheerful, which he still does now, and it's, he's got his own inspo for it, but it's very like the news is bad post-Trump. I'm going to show you like these things are happening though here, and this is actually good things that are happening for areas, like when you put a library into a neighborhood and crime goes down, and like showing this kind of things, curating them like that.
I wish more news was like that.
Yeah, I mean, we could just talk about those things.
Yeah.
But so, I watched him do that, and that was the first time I was like, oh, I could do more than be a musician. And for sure, that's like when I now like started a history show.
Which I've watched. It's really great.
Thank you.
I like it. Thank you for doing that, by the way.
Thank you, man.
It's cool.
But so for sure, that's an extension of that. Even if like, I have other reasons for sure, without a doubt. And probably more like those are my first, but there's no like, oh, I'm like, oh, there's the light bulbs. Like I could have, more of a presence than just a musician.
Yeah.
And I like, he does so many. So there's like a lot of, he's very inspiring and motivating to me. And
sounds like an excellent person to work for.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good guy.
That's cool. Good for you. I'm glad that you got that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because then it'd be the fortunate to be on his bus. I think there was like they would split it. It was like the singer's bus and the drummer's bus, and so it was 6 drummers on this one, and then the singers on this one, and so then it'd be like we would do a show. And we're on the bus, and then we're just like hanging out until whatever time we all go to sleep. So it's like whether the nights are just talking about whatever, watching ridiculous like funny things, like movies together. It was just like no, we're like living with each other in that capacity now. So then it just like, I mean, luckily the vibes were great. It wasn't no bad roommates, so the situation was awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And you went on to play late night shows.
Yeah.
Everything. The whole thing.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet. What's that like playing on national television when like millions of people will see it in some capacity, whether it's
SNL
live,
was crazy. Yeah.
I remember watching the SNL.
Yeah.
Man. I was just like,
that's a whole other energy.
Yeah.
Like I've done I guess like performances where I'm like, oh, stoked about this one. And then we've like done the songs before and like stoked about it, particularly when it's getting recorded, something like that, national TV. So like when I'm doing, I guess probably like later, like the first recording night show we did with David was like Colbert, I think. And it was like, everything was kind of new. That was like tour. And it was like, okay, we're like working this out. I don't even know if we actually had played like a show yet, but it was just like, okay, we're going to do this like here. And that was like cool. That's all like new, taking it as it comes. Now like fast forward like a year. I mean, when we were doing the Broadway show, Jimmy Fallon, and I remember just now it's like I've done like this song like so much, so we're adapting it for like this scene now. But I'm also just thinking things more like, this is what I want. I want to make sure this happens in this moment, or I want to make sure like what I'm, the things that I'm in control of and stuff. But it's like more of I've done it a lot, so I could think about higher. I could think about just for myself, my own performance, higher level thinking, I think. SNL, that's like a whole other, it's a whole other energy. First, you even go there like days before to like do the rehearse, they can get their shots and blah, blah, blah. But then when like that happens, like it's live. Like Colbert, that's like recorded earlier, then it's shown at night. This is like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's like a whole other, not to mention like, pre-show, I mean, like, there's just celebrities on celebrities there.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm seeing Larry David before I go out, Chris Rock, talking to them, like Amy Schumer. There was just like all this, and like a bunch of them had seen the show, so it was like conversations, like whatever.
Who was the host that night?
John Mulaney, who saw the show like 9 times.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so like, John, the dude.
That's wild.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure like he's like he was like, I'm hosting, but David Byrne has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like that dude he's awesome. Just love the show. And so at any rate, like energy was crazy, the after party crazy. I think it's just the live, like this is what it is. And like, you do like one show run before, and that's like, okay. And then it's like, boom, that's it.
That's what makes it so prolific. That's
100%.
The hosts, the skits, the acting, the performances of musicians. It's, it's Saturday night live.
Yeah, I don't know if I've done it like that.
Yeah.
Live. I don't know.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's comparable things though, like Coachella and I mean any festival really. Certainly like the ones whatever that I would deem enormous.
What's the biggest one you played in your eyes as far as just people attendance? Now that you're aware of, at least.
Lollapalooza in Brazil was like, I could not see where, and Coachella the second weekend, I could not see where the heads ended.
So like 300,000-400,000 people or something.
Oh well, no, I don't know.
500,000.
I think
people.
they 500,000. I don't know. I think I have 1 million there, but I think there's like 80,000 or something, and that could be like 80,000 for the whole thing. So how many was I looking at that were at our particular thing? I don't know, but like
enough.
Could not see where it ended.
That's so crazy.
Couldn't see that.
Now, does that change when you play in front of 50 people, or SNL, or Coachella, or Lollapalooza in Brazil? Does anything change for you as a musician, as a performer, based on the size, or does it not matter at the point where you've been playing so much and you're so trained and you're so in tune that performing is performing? Or does it actually change with you? I
mean, I love it. It gasses me up.
Yeah.
Not to say like a small crowd wouldn't do that either, but there's some, I love energy. I mean, I don't think I don't know, maybe some performers, but like unfazed by like what's going on. But no, I enjoy like the communication between me and them. I think there's like also an excitement that we would have like when we're doing the Broadway show. It's like at this theater, boom, 6 nights, boom. So then when you change up the scenery, surely that's just like something new.
Yeah.
It'd be like if you're dating in a long relationship and you guys go to the same restaurant every Friday night, but this time you want to go to this restaurant.
Yeah.
You're a little more excited.
Yeah,
you gotta be.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I love it. Like I'm the first one to be like, gas me up. Like, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I feed off of that for sure. And energy. And I think at least that band does too, but most that I play with.
What has been your favorite show? Does anything stick out besides SNL? Does anything stick out? A show that you did anywhere in the world? That just kind of really overwhelmed you, took you by surprise?
I think about to answer that. It's more the people important in my life that were at certain shows.
Okay.
My grandfather, who's like 90, and now 92, but when I do Florida, he's like not only there, but like standing up the entire time. That's beautiful.
Wow.
My mom coming to Italy, my dad and godfather in Chicago, my brother coming to Hong Kong.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
There was like, those are all, at that point, it's just you want to share experiences with the people you love. Mm-hmm. So I think those would be more my special ones. Every now and then, I guess something kind of crazy happens in a show, which that's cool too. But not in the same kind of like long lasting way.
Yeah. Give me an example of what you mean by something crazy that happens.
I remember, we're in Italy, and actually my mom is at this show, so it kind of hits both then, I guess. But everywhere we play, it's like everyone's standing up, going crazy, right? And then every now and then, when this happens on Broadway, but I think when we were on tour, if we were at an opera house, like that happened in like London, I think people generally while they're there, they're like sitting down, and like that's what it is, and so they don't know that they can stand up and dance, right? And so we're doing this one show, and it's definitely in Italy, and because my mom freaked out when David Byrne's like, stop the music, and my mom's like, what's wrong with my son? Something happened to my son? Whatever like that. But like he's like, sir, and going to usher, let the people dance, because this dude was like telling them they can't like to sit down. And so the second that happens, it's just like, again, they're like at this setting where it's like, I got to be proper. I got my hands closed. But like looking around, though, the energy is always, especially on Broadway too. It's like, can I dance? Like, we're supposed to sing along, right? Like we're supposed to do those things, right? I get I'm in a Broadway theater, but we're supposed to do that. And And so like the second he did that, it's like eruption happens, and like everyone is like now in the aisles dancing and
at an
whatever like
opera
that.
house in Italy.
Yeah,
Everyone's
that was like
dancing.
that was definitely this like whatever the venue was. That was an opera house, but like it was a very classical theater like type thing. And so that would happen every now and then you get on Broadway, and then like I would speak to Mulaney about it and stuff, where it's just like when there's people in the front rows that will just dance, like, oh, I don't care, I'm standing up and dancing. Then everyone's like, oh, it's okay to do that. And so then the rest of the shows, it's like, oh, they're up on their feet. Which was definitely an energy I missed in the translation of going from tour to Broadway. It was like that you're sitting down while we're playing rather than like standing up the entire time.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest pet peeves about a theater show. When I see like a band's come to Chicago theater, I'm just like, I want to like move.
Yeah, you want to get loose.
It's a show.
You want to get loose. Exactly.
Why,
exactly.
Like, it's a great sounding and beautiful theater, but when you're trying to like move and groove, like you want to be in a venue where you have that.
100%.
Yeah. Do you find yourself playing those a lot? Theaters where people they physically can't because the chairs are stationary.
I mean, every now and then it happened on tour, but the Broadway show was like that's what it was, right? And so that was then. I mean, I guess for me in American Utopia, it was like tour, and then it was Broadway, and equal amount of shows. I think is like we're very similar amount of shows is what I've done. So that was like one of the bigger differences.
And are you still like going to be going on tour with? We're
about to go back on Broadway.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, we start rehearsals in a few weeks.
That's awesome, especially after what we all went through the last year and a half. I mean, I'm sure that heavily affected your life.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean,
affected my life a lot. I mean, if you're going around the world doing this stuff, it's
I mean, my calendar was like a gig. It was like 8 shows a week the rest of the year. I was like,
for those listening, there's only 7 days in a week.
Yeah, but so like David's show got out like the end of beginning of February. We finished middle of February, and so Corona happens in March, and so I went back to Moulin Rouge, which is where that was like the first Broadway show that was like my chair. And so I go back to there. I'm there for 3 weeks, and then, everything's done. And at that point, I was gonna do that, and then I was gonna play with Carly Rae Jepsen, who I've never played with her, so that was gonna be cool. But like Coachella, so I was looking forward to those things, and then. Just done so. And at first it's like 2 weeks off or whatever. And then
you're kind of like, okay, I can do that.
I left my double bass at the theater, and then it was like, okay, well now it's gonna be longer. And then I was like, I remember like a week, 2 weeks into it, I'm like, wait, I should have taken that thing, right? And then I went and got it immediately, because then it was, we're here still, really. I mean, even when we go back now, it's gonna be obviously things, Delta, question marks, etc. But the rules, it's going to be interesting now looking at audience, and I think it'll be fun though, so everyone come to the show. But it'll be weird looking at an audience that is like, has a mask on the whole time. They have to.
Yeah.
So that's like.
Well, are they going to do full capacity, but fully vax and show your vaccination card, masks, everything?
Fully vax and mask, yeah.
That's the only way we can do it, because we can't go back to what we did.
It is the only way you can do it.
It'll destroy the economy even more. It'll destroy society even more. It'll pull us apart even further. The middle ground, I think, is masks, vaccination, and like respecting each other. Like what else can you do?
You can hope that it doesn't morph again to something that is like past the vax. That's like my biggest worry.
I know, me too.
Yeah, I mean,
too.
Yeah, so
that's what I'm fearing right now. With like, I bought a bunch of shows, like tickets to see shows over the fall at the Aragon Ballroom, at the Metro, and now I'm getting all the emails saying like, well, now you have to show vaccination, wear masks, and then I'm like thinking about like DZ Fest. I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like that's in September, and I'm like.
That's in September.
September 25th and 26th. And
I'm just you're thinking about in ways I am not at all.
Yeah, I'm like, so.
I hope it happens. I hope all goes well.
I do too. I mean, this would have been the 10th year, and now it's the 9th, which is awesome, but I'm just kind of like so terrified. I'm like, I can't cancel this again. Please don't do this to me.
Yeah,
but
100%. I hope it goes well.
Thank you. I do too. I mean, you played 2 years, right? Or 1 year?
I think one time.
2017, I think.
Maybe.
I don't know. That was a really, really awesome performance. You played one of the years we had like one of the best turnouts.
I mean, it's a great time.
It was fun.
And blah, 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 of course.
Yeah, they're sick.
100%.
Solomon's awesome.
100%.
Yeah. So, and any other like, while you're doing Broadway and doing David Byrne's band, are you playing with anybody else, or those things are just so time consuming that that's all you're doing?
I mean, that was like, playing with people. I'll do random one-off spots with whomever for sure. Definitely though, it was like all David Byrne shows, and then Corona happened. So then, in the interim of between tour and Broadway starting, which was like 6 months or whatever, I went out to Los Angeles. And for me, that's just like, I love to be in the studio. So it's like writing and production work. And I would do like random gigs, but not like in a band and like doing that. I haven't. I guess it would have been, I was going to do all of Carly's like festivals. So that would have been cool. But I mean, it's just kind of been playing wise, knocked the year off of Corona, but those last 2 years were like all David Byrne, really.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what have you been doing over Corona to like supplement work? Or have you been just doing stuff at your studio with people sending you things like?
Yeah. Producing for several artists, like overdoing their like producing their projects, and then in entirety, and then various spots for others. A lot of like commercials has been like regular thing for me, and then I started the history show, which like now that's like a welcome ingredient to like my regular, not just only doing music type thing. Yeah.
Can you go more into that, more detail about the history show?
Yeah. So called America Learn Your History. I basically post George Floyd world, out protesting and all that. But I was also kind of like, I have a platform I can kind of do more, is what I kind of thought. And as I'm taking in information like everyone else, and I'm looking in my phone really at this time a bunch, and I'm just like, just opinion shouting at opinion. I don't like that it's just like Team Red versus Team Blue. I hate that.
Me too.
But I was also just kind of like, man, and no one even knows what they're talking about too. So I was like, it was the popular phrase of America, white America, being like, we're listening and learning. And I was like, bullshit. But I was also kind of like, I didn't even like the phrase because there's no action in that phrase. Mm-hmm. It's like very passive. But so then I was like, fine, if you are, I was like, we'll see who's still listening and learning in like 6 months from now. And so I was like, I'll give 2-minute episodes of just facts only. Because that was the other thing. All these opinions, I was like, nah, it's just going to be facts. I'm like, this is how it went down. But now the only difference when like history is just about narrative and like whose perspective, etc. And so I was like, I'm going to do facts. It's going to be more like people that from not always the one that did the oppressing perspective, the victor's perspective, but the other way. And so and give voice to that. And so it was very like made just like concrete rules of like 2 minutes facts only, blah blah blah, and then just did it. I worked with my friend, my friend Danny Yurgo is the director I worked with. He kind of at first I was just gonna be, as I was telling him my idea, just like narration with images over it, but he was like, no, they've got to like see you, they've got to attach to you and stuff. So I was like, fine. So he helped me on some of the creative direction and stuff. But it's like, it's done. It kind of, I mean, it did really well, like immediately, and that was great. And then I kind of saw the thing I kind of thought, where it's like when it's not a trend, people are still, it's like less talked about. People are not caring really. Mm-hmm. And so, but at least like now for me though, who always loved school, history, definitely. And, particularly from like where church I grew up in Chicago, my godfather, Jeremiah Wright, that was like Barack Obama's pastor who kind of,
wow. I didn't know that.
But he's very like, he's one of the most brilliant people I know. And, it's a very conscious about like black people's presence in America specifically, and that's who he like talks for and speaks for, etc. And so like definitely helped shape my mind. All that to say, shape my mind very, very young. And so now for me, as it's like always curious, but not spending the time to like read Franz Fanon and not spending the time to read like all these things. And so even for myself now, like I'm like digging into research papers and whatnot, and it just adds so much for me personally as I'm walking around, the context in which I see groups of people, individuals, etc., and just the layers, and then for myself understand like how Chicago is the way it is, and just a very specific redlined, and like how, but like why it went down, why it stays that way, why it's still that way, and just very infrastructure things. And I'm very like, I've always loved like macro perspective thoughts, I suppose. But so now it's like this whole other thing when I don't know, it's just like building the depth to which I'm like myself and understand this stuff, but the journey's like so long. So it's cool. It's the same way with music, where I kind of, oh yeah, like I want to learn this technique and then this technique and then that technique. Now it's just like learning something. I'm like, oh, then I got to read this next, and then I got to read this next, and it's just a whole other. It's good. It's good.
So you've been learning so much, and that's really cool. That's what I love about a different journey, a different adventure from like your work or your hobby, like another endeavor that you learn from and you grow from.
100%.
How often do you do episodes?
I try to do weekly. Yeah. It's just, now even life has started getting busier with music stuff. But yeah, weekly's the goal.
That's cool.
And I want to do them right too. So it's most of the time is spent like reading and then the writing part. It's not really, I do like the editing and everything, but that's like less than just all the reading, and then what do I want to say after that.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. And you started doing them in June 2020?
Yeah.
Do you have any plans for that? You're just going to keep doing them every week and just keep at it and see what happens?
Yeah, growing it out now. So going to convert into a newsletter and taking it off. There's some podcast things also on the horizon. So
cool.
It's kind of like, also want to bring in, now that I've been talking more, I want to make it, grow it more where like other voices are heard too. And so as just a platform. And so some historians I'm also talking to about that, which is really cool. Yeah. It's crazy because I'm not a historian at all. So when they tell me they learn stuff, that's crazy.
You're turning into one.
I don't know. I feel like I got so much. I like it. It's a very like beginner's mind thing. And I think for me, that's like obsessed over one thing forever. It's nice to like be a kid again and like dabble in something that I never like was like, on this thing. Of like, hey, I'm a musician, right? And like, I guess, I was always like, but I'm a musician though. So blah, 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 not seeing these other things. And so that's been probably like one of the coolest things. I wouldn't call historian, but I would, amateur historian, I guess.
So you plan on doing like a show and having historians on it, maybe? Or you don't want to talk about, give away too much?
No, working out, but I think there'll be more than just my voice presenting episodes and people that also like represent other groups and whatnot, and having it just be that, where really it's like, I mean, a lot of this is it's very critical race theory. Like I didn't even know critical race theory when I started this, but then the second I started reading Derek Bell and now I'm like, oh, my entire show is that. All it is like you're looking through the way that this system operates and saying that race is involved in every aspect, and it really is, and gender too, and all that. And so that's kind of just what my show is like that. So then for me, it's like I see it this one way, but I definitely don't see it as women see it, and I don't see it as like any other Middle East group sees it, and so things like that. And so all these experiences are different, and that's kind of what's been. I know my own, obviously, and like my family. I'm also Puerto Rican, so I was like, those were those two worlds for me. But when I'm now have read a lot on issues that don't pertain to me, like Asian American history, which I have found is way harder to research than Black American history. It just to like literally find information, but it adds so much then as I'm like out and just know like our story as America. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're doing it because for some reason, our history books are very skewed towards white men.
Some reason.
For whatever reason, don't know why, but people of color, women, different ethnicities, different religions, if you're Muslim, if you're Jewish, if you're pretty much anything but a Christian white man,
Yeah.
you're kind of, they'll mention a couple things, but it's not, it's kind of distorted when it is even kind of correct. And when it is correct, it's just a small amount. They don't show you the whole picture. And I don't even know how that gets approved by the Board of Education for states, why that's allowed, why it doesn't go further with these history books, why we don't really learn a lot about it growing up.
I mean, you see it today with politicians. It's just active opposition against it, and then it can be, how is it framed? If today it's critical race theory, and that's just a talking point, and we don't even people are arguing about it and not even knowing what it really is, which is scary, really, and just the way that we operate. But that to me is kind of like team A versus team A versus team B, and so all that sucks. To your point about the textbooks, I mean, Mississippi had a textbook that was like revised in it was written in 1991 around then, and it just told like, I mean, this is the state with the most lynchings in history, and it just said that, it said stuff like that, and they were like, they banned the book even though it was like highly awarded on all these things, but it's like because it's un-American, and then you get to this weird, at least where I'm at when I think about some of these things right now, is that like I think about the idea of like when you call somebody basic, and it's very it's common, right? But maybe we'll get to a point where when we look at basic, all that really does is like other everything else. Basic is the generalized notion, and everything else is like, oh, different. And that's how we like really look at this world. There's like what basic is white people really, but and so like anything with taste, I guess, would be that thing of basic outside of that. But really what you're doing is like, but that's different. And because they can do this, or like they do it like that. And all these things are just, they're taking what like the regular is standard. That's the standard. And everything else is different. And so then like, we're not, in my opinion, the mentality, the framework that we're looking at this all is still operating the same. Scary to me.
Yeah. No, it is.
That's just common culture right there. When you call somebody basic, it's like, yeah, but it's like a phrase. It's like, it's just cool.
Yeah, I mean, in the world of art and expression and music and musicianship, that phrase tends to be thrown around a lot. Like, because people who are creative don't see themselves as being basic, they just always say it. And I'm just like, just like going after people's political beliefs or religious beliefs, it doesn't help the situation if you're just gonna be calling people basic, or like putting them into a box because they do the same thing to you. There's better ways of going about trying to understand somebody. Surely.
I just mean even like the standard that we look at it is that, and everything else is that.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's tricky. That's an interesting place to go. I'm glad you're doing it. I wish more people did other things to help. Like, that's what inspired me to do this podcast. After meeting so many different people and so many different artists, I was like, I keep hearing like the coolest stories, but like no one knows about these stories. No one knows about these people. That's why I like to talk to people and try to have a platform for others to listen to unique stories, such as what you're saying right now. Even your touring experience or your Broadway experience, the fact that you made the decision, probably during college, you're like, I have to go to LA or Chicago or New York after this, maybe do some grunt work in Chicago, get my bearings good, and then leave. Like, that's not everyone does that. Most people don't do that. It's very hard to do. And I commend you on doing that, because you ended up doing really awesome things with it. And you still are, and this History Channel thing is really cool. And
thank you.
I hope you keep, I know you'll keep doing it.
Yeah, no plans on stopping until it's better out there, when it's all equal. Yeah, I got no plans of stopping for sure.
Yeah, that's really cool. Is there anything you want to share or promote? Anything at all before we end?
I think we did everything. It's called America Learn Your History. I'll be back Broadway. A couple artist projects I'm doing is Tate Tucker. That'll be out soon. Great hip hop artist, young in LA. Who else? Doing some stuff with Titus Burgess. The Avantist.
Nice.
Their next project, which is sounding great.
That's cool.
Yeah, very
That's cool.
We did that. That was like a recording we did, like right before Corona happened. Out here, they came out and
Okay.
we worked in the studio, not too far from here. Who else? Oh, and Russell Elliott doing his whole project. So yeah, be on the lookout for that music too.
Is there a certain website people can find more of your information? Just Instagram, Facebook?
I mean, I'll promote it on my own. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But like,
so just find you on Instagram.
yeah, just producing for them. So.
Yeah. Find Bobby Wooten on Instagram. Cool. Well, thank you, Bobby, for coming here
no
and for
problem.
doing this. It's great to
problem,
see you
man.
again.
Yeah, pleasure.
I'm really happy for you and everything you do. I always just love it when people I have met or see just are doing the thing. Whatever it is, they're happy, they're doing it, they're propagating positive feelings and vibes into the ether. That's what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Latest.
Bye.